people, so hopefully I can keep it going.
Well, I like it, so not that that'll help run, but I like it. So, but I want to get some knowledge this afternoon here for the folks on the rundown. I want to talk about Clemson basketball team. You know, they've had some issues here the last 3 games, and I kind of looked at the numbers myself, and a lot of it, in my opinion, they're having a hard time stopping the 3 ball.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last 3 games, Virginia shot 55%, Georgia Tech shot 61%, not to mention Florida State at about 43%. Of course, I'm not really sure that was the issue against Florida State. They just couldn't hit shots. But they're just having a hard time defending the ball. And then whenever they do make their rotations to help and then close out on their second rotations, they're doing it out of control, and they're not having good close. So you're in a constant state of scramble that can never really stop the ball. And what happens then, you overrun, you give up wide open threes, which has been basically the gist of the last 3 losses. They just haven't been able to guard the ball.
Well, but you know what, though? I went back and I looked at a game, and I know this is kind of a small sample size, but a team that shoots the ball very well from three-point land in Alabama, Clemson held them to 3 for 16 in that earlier win this season. And in that game, they were closing out. And I don't understand what the big difference is from then until now. Do you think it's more of a COVID thing, or with the layoff, or different personnel going in? I mean, from your perspective, what's keeping them from doing that?
Well, the energy on the ball hasn't been very good. I don't think I'm letting some big cat out of the bag by saying that. The energy doesn't remain the same. Alamir Dawes isn't creating turnovers. And you also have to look at it like this. Like Florida State, Scotty Barnes, Anthony Polite at the 1 and 2. Virginia, Kihei Clark. Georgia Tech, DeVoe, and Alvarado. 3 teams, high-level guards, guys that aren't going to turn it over. And that's limited Clemson a little bit because they have thrived on turnover situations and getting quick buckets and quick threes that way. They haven't been able to do it the last 3 games because defensive energy has been lacking, and therefore it's been even more difficult to score.
Yeah, it's just when I look at, and you mentioned the energy on the ball, I mean, that makes so much sense to me because I've been following Alabama because for some reason they just constantly end up in my feed to watch. They shoot the 3 ball so well, and then Clemson really, really helped them on that, held them in check on that. But do you think that getting John Newman III more minutes and just getting the dust knocked off of him maybe throwing the sink off just a little bit?
Well, you know, it's hard to do because he's been out with a concussion, and then he was out because during the preseason he was out because of some knee situations. You wonder if he really feels okay because he hasn't had that spark. I mean, from an outsider looking in, and I haven't talked to anybody about this, I'm just from an outsider looking in, he doesn't have that energy, that spark, that extra gear that he typically has as far as pressuring the ball and kind of the attitude he played with his first 2 seasons. He hasn't had this year. And, trying to get him more minutes and get him in the groove, the numbers say he's one of the best defensive players in the country. But the manner in which he's defending doesn't strike me as kind of the same things. So, he's kind of a hard guy to read. You want him to play more minutes because he has that length athleticism, but the pop isn't quite there. And since it's not there with him, you hope he can be a guy that can bring the energy. I thought Nick Honor was going to be that guy with his ability to make shots and get hot quickly. But he hasn't been that guy in the last 3 games either. I wonder who's going to be that next pick-me-up player. People want to say Amir Sims, he's a senior leader, but that's not really his game. He's more of a let it come to me, and then I'll play off of that kind of guy.
Yeah, it is interesting, though, just to see I don't want to falling apart because I don't think that with the talents on this team, I don't see them falling off the face of the planet, but they didn't get any help from the conference. They were going to play, a 3-10 Boston College team at home. Now they bring in a Louisville team that can really get after.
Yeah, that you want to talk about unfortunate? That's their bounce back game, Boston College. And then all of a sudden you come in with Carla Jones and David Johnson, who, quite frankly, rivaled Georgia Tech's Alvarado and DeVos for probably the best 1-2s in the league. And it's a tough pill to swallow because Boston College could have been your get-right game. That could have been your bring the defensive intensity back up and hit some shots game because they don't have a lot of size around the perimeter. So that could have given you some things. Now you run into a Louisville team I'm going to count David Jensen as a veteran guard, even though he's a sophomore, because he plays with so much. And then basically a senior guard in Carlick Jones, a transfer from Radford, who has been fantastic all season. You're not going to be able to force a whole lot of turnovers tonight either. So I'm wondering where Clemson's going to be able to generate their offense, and they need to really pick up their effort on defense as well.
You think it's also an issue rebounding? It seems like they're not getting the offensive rebounds that they got at the beginning of the season.
A little bit, but they're not necessarily a huge offensive rebounding team anyway. I mean, against Georgia Tech, they rebounded 41% of their own misses, so that really didn't help much. It's tough. You know, Hunter Tyson's typically really good at that. He's just now getting back into the fold after getting against Alabama. You know, where they're really struggling is guarding the ball. I mean, it's as simple as that. They've been able to generate offense off their defense. That's when they're really good. You know, you think about their big games, pre-conference. Purdue didn't have a solid point guard. Maryland didn't have a single guy that could really take care of the ball for you. Mississippi State, freshman point guard. NC State, young guards. Daniels, who isn't typically somebody who takes the ball up, was forced to take the ball up. So they're really good at capitalizing off teams that don't have good guard play. And it just happens to be that probably some of the best three teams as far as guard play is concerned happen to be the last three games. And it's just made it difficult.
How do you think that, and this is just a general question, not just with Clemson in mind, the grind of having to get through this season with dealing with COVID and everything else, how do you think that affects a team as far as just the core of it?
Well, I mean, you're seeing it across the country. I mean, University of Tennessee was playing really well. They go on a COVID pause and they come back not looking great. And it's worked vice versa. It's worked well the other way too. Like teams come back, not have games, and then they've been playing poorly prior to a break and they come back on fire because they can kind of clear their head. It is a momentum force, so it shoots you right back down to neutral. Whether you're playing well or playing poorly, it shoots you right back to neutral. And you just gotta have to play with it. I can't imagine having to deal with the psychology of these players, because sometimes you say, "Oh, well, it's a day off," and that's kind of my train of thought was, well, you get a couple of days off right in the middle of January. That's when your dog days are, quote unquote. Like, it's not a typical time off because you don't get to see your coaches, you don't get to see your teammates. Like, you're stuck in the room by yourself, and that's significant for these guys. I can't imagine having to navigate the psychology of these players throughout the course of the season, knowing that, hey, we could get a call tomorrow and be off for 10 days.
Terrence Oglesby joins us here on the Rundown this afternoon. My final question for you, being the shooter that you were, and not being able to even, some coaches say their guys can't even go into the gym to shoot. Does that throw off your rhythm and it just takes a while to basically shoot out of it?
Oh, no question. I mean, just being able to fill the ball and more than anything, you know, feel where your teammates are supposed to be. I think that's a significant portion of it. You know, where do I know where my guy is going to, like, for example, if I'm playing with John Newman, I know he's trying to go left every time, so I'm trying to play off accordingly. But at the same time, if I don't see John Newman for 6 days, it's still going to take a second for me to get back on track to know where to get my feet set. Like, I knew when I was playing with DeMontez Stitt that I didn't need to get down to the corner until he got all the way under the paint, because if he got in that little 8-foot range, he was going to reattack. Well, that's something that would have taken time for me to readjust. And because of the manner in which it's just start, stop, it's made it really difficult for everybody.
Terrence Oglesby joining us on the Rundown. And of course, they can follow you on Twitter. You tweet during the games. It's at Coach TO22, right?
That's it. So go ahead and give me a follow. I go back and forth with pretty much everybody. I try to answer questions as the game is going on. Make sure you hit that follow button. Make sure you talk back and forth with me, and I look forward to a fun game tonight. I'm going to be back to the house a little bit late because I'm calling both Houston's men's and women's game tonight. So I'm going to run back to the house as fast as possible to make sure I make that 9 o'clock tip. Make
sure you follow him on Twitter and his podcast. You can find all that information you can get right there from his Twitter page too. Just great stuff from you, man. I feel like a smarter fan when I watch any of your stuff you put out there, man. It just makes me better in here too, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. That's what I'm trying to do. I enjoy doing it. And I still like teaching. I don't necessarily like the day-to-day of coaching, but I still like teaching the game, and it's kind of given me another avenue to do that.
All right, Terrence, man, looking forward to your reaction tonight with the Clemson game. They welcome in 25th ranked Louisville. Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you.
There you go. Terrence Oglesby joining us on the rundown. Now, I've got folks lined up to come into the show here. Head out to the phones, 803-978-1832. Good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Ray. How are you doing today?
Ray, I'm sure you want to talk to me about some football stuff, man. I've got tons of football stuff happening. Of course, Tennessee decided that they want to be UCF North, and the Gamecocks have lost their running back coach, and South Carolina announced their schedule for today. So where do you want to go, man?
Absolutely. It's almost like interactive radio. It's like it's real time, you know. But anyway, I was going to talk about Des Kitchen situation. You know, I wish Des nothing but, you know, best of luck. I really do. Yeah. But having said that, when Coach Beamer was hired, I was telling my buddies, I said, you know, we're one program that needs a clean, fresh cut. I said, I know there's some good coaches that were one of the from the last regime. I said, and they may be good coaches, but I want all new coaches. I don't want any holdovers. And then we got where like half the staff were holdovers, you know. And I remember, Bobo making the comment, you know, Carolina was a place for him. You know, Chloe's a great place to raise a family. You could see yourself here another 10 years. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he basically said that in a roundabout way.
Well, let me hold on one second here before we get too far off here. One of the big things today, Des Kitchings, the running backs coach for South Carolina, was there for a year and has decided to head to the NFL. We thought with the hiring of the offensive line coach that things were going to be done as far as Coach Beamer goes. Now he's got to find a running backs coach, and I tell you what, it is an interesting thing there. And you know, there's nothing but positive things to be said about what Des Kitchings and everything you hear. He was a great guy. I get that. But it comes back down to, I think, what you were talking about. I don't know why you would keep anybody from a 2-8 staff. And I'm not knocking Coach Beamer for that, but I can definitely see the adage of why did we keep anybody from that staff when the head coach that hired everybody there that was responsible for us going 2-8, we fired him, paid him $12.9 million. I mean, I'm all about the cleansing there. Get everybody and out. Just go.
Exactly, Rob. And I had the same sentiments. And I don't know if it was one of those things where, you know, let's be honest, we're paying a guy $12.9 million on a one lump sum in the next week or so.
I think they already paid him at the I got to remember the date. But yeah, I mean, he's getting paid, and he won't be a part of the program anymore. So that's good if you're a Gamecock fan, but just sad. Yeah. It's just sad because, and it looks like the adage that you'll see from a lot of people is, you know, well, what's going on over there? Beamer can't keep any of these guys there. No one wants coach there now. What is this? And it's really not that way. I mean, you know, South Carolina is an SEC program. They, you know, it may not be the most decorated program in the history of college football, but they're an SEC program. They have top-notch facilities down there. I mean, you would think that, you know, coaches would want them there and work with some of those guys. I don't know. It's just insane, in my opinion.
Well, Rob, that's exactly right, and that's the optics it's going to have nationally. And I go back, and there's a part of me that thinks maybe we're keeping all these other coaches, and I'm not saying Tanner totally told Beamer to go that way, but, you know, you're thinking you have these contracts to pay off, so, well, you know, we got to tighten the belt here, so let's just keep as many coaches as we can.
Now, I can see that, but I can also see, you know what, you had guys on the recruiting trail, and they were already, you know, out and about and doing things. The idea to keep some of those relationships, you know, to maybe salvage some recruiting stuff, maybe makes some more sense. I would just like to think that I know that money is an issue with every program around the country right now. I mean, there's been sports that have been cut at different universities around the country. I'm not saying that it's monopoly money shooting out of the trees, but when it comes to football at an SEC school and it's not Vanderbilt, I don't see where money is a problem. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but with the payouts and stuff they get from different bowl games and everything else, it's just insane to think and that maybe money had something to do with it. So I'm in the realm of, I think it had more to do with recruiting and keeping people that had vines out as far as recruiting and going to different high schools around this region. But I could be wrong.
Well, you're probably right. And I'll just a few other things, and I'll get off the line here, Bob. But, I, for one, I wish, like I said, I wish Coach Kitchen was the best of luck. If he'd have stayed, that'd been great. But I think now we only have one holdover left, I believe.
It's Coach Mike Peterson, the linebacker coach.
The linebacker coach. I think he's the only holdover left. So, to me, this is like a lesson learned for not just the Gamecocks, but for anybody. When you got a program that won 6 games in 2 years, and you get a coaching hire, man, you need to just start from scratch. And I don't care. Replace your water boy. Replace whoever carried the coach's headset. I mean, you need you got to have a fresh start. And I would like to talk about men's basketball.
Oh, okay. You got the Gamecock men's basketball team tonight plays Georgia. They've won 8 in a row in that series. I'm assuming you want to talk about that, right?
Yeah, and I won't be long. I know I've been taking a lot of time, and I appreciate it.
How about it, buddy?
But I do think, thank you, sir. I do think that this is a pivotal or critical game for the Gamecocks. If we come up short in this game, I could see us going over or maybe winning one more game the rest of the year. I just think the program, and there's many reasons. There's COVID. You're not getting good guard play. You're not getting good play for your bigs because you don't have many bigs because they've been out with COVID. But I do think this is a chance to get a win, and I think if we come up short, that you could almost write off the rest of the season. But that's what I got to say there. But thanks a lot, Rob.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. All right. We'll take calls this afternoon, 803-978-1832. If you want to talk about that, we're going to look at the Gamecock schedule. One more call before we go to a break here. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Mr. Saunders.
Hey, buddy. What's going on?
Well, I just want to address, I did not catch all of the conversation with the previous caller, but I got it. I got the problem solved for both of you guys.
All right.
I texted Lawton's show yesterday because he was talking about the same thing, Beamer.
Sure.
And I gave him my opinion. I told him, I texted him a message and he read it, and it stated this. I have much respect for Frank Beamer.
Frank?
No
yeah,
comment.
okay. Yeah, okay.
I mean, yes, great coach. I don't know anything about his son. I can't make a comment on his son.
That's true.
What I can comment on is this. Steve Spurrier, Lou Holtz was there, did not win, and to my knowledge, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember them winning an SEC title with those two guys there.
Right. They did go to the championship game. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was
10-win season was their best.
Right. They won that the year they went to the championship game. I think they won 8 games. So it wasn't one of their better record teams, but
you get my point.
Right.
So the question is being answered this way. If Spurrier and Holtz can't get it done, I'm not saying Beamer's son can't do it. I'm not saying that. Don't misunderstand me. But if he does improve over Holtz and Spurrier, it will take many, I'm talking at least 4 or 5 years. At least 4 or 5. I'm saying 5 years.
He's got to be given time, and I think that Gamecock fans are happy with him because he wants to be here. It's in a completely different way that they do things. They released their schedule today, and they went out and found people that were near the football center there, that the nurses and stuff that are, helping administer the COVID vaccine. They let them introduce the schedule and gave them season tickets. It was just a really different way of things from the when Muschamp was there. So as far as the warm and fuzzy front, that's great. But it comes down to what's done between the lines.
I hate to interrupt you, but
sure.
I think that is definitely a good place to start, because Muschamp, I don't even know why he came to Carolina, because he acted like he didn't want to be there day one. Frank Beamer seems to love, and that's another thing Frank Beamer's son I can't understand why he doesn't respect Virginia Tech more. He acts like he would rather be at University of South Carolina than Virginia Tech. Now, if that was my dad and I was coaching, I'd want to be at VT.
Well, every man has what they like, man. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, buddy. I got to go to a break, but I appreciate you calling us here today, man. Thanks so much.
Later.
All right, there you go. We take a quick, when we come back, we haven't even talked about Tennessee yet. And how they're going to be UCF North. That's basically what's going on down up there. We'll get into that in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, I remember that, Brock. Have you seen the thing? Go to my blog page, Brock, and look at how they introduced the schedule. It was, I don't care who you're a fan of. It was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive stuff. All right, you Tennessee fans out there, what's up with you guys? I know it was a Fireball was talking earlier. Wow. Mick volunteers. Jed, you're a dirty old man. That's really funny. I mean, the Tennessee thing is insane to me. Welcome back to the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks so much for joining us. We got to talk about Tennessee today, man. With what went on down up in Knoxville. Their athletic director said something funny. This job was only offered to one person. Really? I'm not sure if I'm buying that. I mean, I guess I could be bought and made to believe that if I got one of those McDonald's bag, the McDonald's bags full of money. I mean, I would buy that lie that you're selling because that's kind of how I think about that. I think they offered it to several people. And here's the other thing. He said right beforehand, and this was interesting too, I can't tell you all the people that wanted this job, really. Here's what I think happened. And this is just a conspiracy theory by me, by the way. In my opinion, I think this may end up being a decent hire for Tennessee. Heupel is what, 28-6 or 26-8 or something like that in his career, 28-8, whatever. Coached at UCF, was Mizzou's offensive coordinator, also worked at Vanderbilt, was in the national championship as a quarterback. Maybe he's going to be great. I don't know. All right. But I think what happened was the athletic director for Tennessee had all these guys that he thought that he liked. I think he got turned down a lot. I wasn't in on any of these meetings, but I'm just saying that's kind of the vibe that it looks like for me. And he got to thinking about it. And he's like, you know what? I had a relationship with this coach Heupel. And, you know, he's done some good things for me before. And maybe, just maybe, it's something that it's like a security blanket I could go to. I think that's what happened, in my opinion. Now, of course, I wasn't in on the meetings, but you can look at stuff that's online from different outlets, different, media folks that I trust, saying, hey, Tony Elliott was in the running. On Sunday, there were several folks that said he hadn't been contacted, and I believe that. But on the other end, I think that there were a lot of people that turned down that Tennessee job. I would be stunned if it wasn't at least 4 or 5 different people that turned it down. So with that, they get the guy from UCF. And this is one of those things where it looks really good at some points. But we don't really know how it's going to shape up until we know the sanctions they're going to have to face. Yeah, just a lot of things in the mix there. By the way, if you subscribe to my blog page, you would already know what we're going to talk about in the next segment. South Carolina loses their running back coach, Des Kitchings. He's going to the Atlanta Falcons. We had that up before we even started the show today. And we also had South Carolina's full schedule. We're going to go over that and how the schedule shapes up there for the Gamecocks. Tomorrow, I think we get the full SEC looks for everybody. We'll check out the SEC and see how that goes from there. Let's head out to the phones. And good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, man. Big Clemson Tiger fan here.
Oh, how you doing, buddy?
I think that Tennessee job is a great job to have.
With the sanctions that they're facing right now?
The sanctions, what are they going to get? They're going to get 2-year bowl ban?
Well, they have 50 level 1 or level 2 violations. That's impressive.
You had a man at Penn State that knew a pedophile was raping children on his campus, and they got a 2-year bowl ban.
Well, they should have hired the guy at Tennessee, that Bill O'Brien, who resurrected that program from there. I'm sure that he would have loved that too.
Resurrect anything. I mean, the NCAA, they let Penn State off, and Penn State got to be Penn State again. Tennessee's going to be Tennessee again in 2 years.
But they haven't really been Tennessee as far as being Tennessee in 15 years. I mean, they've been really bad.
I agree, but with these sanctions, I mean, I think people are going overboard. We're talking years. They're going to be back in a bowl game. Josh Heupel's a very good coach. I don't know why South Carolina didn't hire him. I just don't see the negatives at Tennessee that everybody else sees. I see negatives for some of these Tennessee kids that are going to transfer because they took money. So some of these schools that are getting these kids, they're not going to be able to play.
Well, we'll definitely have to see. And once again, it comes down to what the sanctions are. I mean, right now, I think the math I did earlier, they're only going to have right now, I think it's 75 scholarship players because of everyone transferring in and out. So it's going to be hard to really field a competitive team this year. And that's without knowing any sanctions you're going to have as far as extra scholarships too. It's just a numbers thing, in my opinion. They're not going to have any way to get talent to win games.
But the same can be said for South Carolina. I mean, they lost a lot of kids, and they've gone to the transfer portal, and they're bringing these junior college kids in. And especially with this transfer portal the way it is now, I mean, it's going to be free agency. I mean, Tennessee can go out there and get a guy from Ohio State that's the backup quarterback and say, look, you can start here at Tennessee. Or you can be the backup at Ohio State. What do you want to do? and that can get you back really quick.
We'll have to see how those sanctions go, though, buddy. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but but with all these kids in the transfer portal, I think it really makes college football a different game now, because you could have a great player that's backing up somebody that's just gone next year.
That's a good point too there, sir.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you calling. All right. Alan V says 2-year bowl ban, 3 years probations, and fear loss of scholarships. That's what he thinks is going to happen. Jerome with the line of the day. They took the McDoubles. I'm going to go to break on that note. More on that and a lot more. We'll look at South Carolina's schedule. I've got the full setup on that. Talk about that in just a moment on the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I'm glad I wasn't drinking my Coke right then, Jerome. I'd have blown it out my nose. Wow, that's bad. Am I wrong to think this is going to be crazy with Tennessee? Why do Auburn and Tennessee have to get head coach from Boise State and UCF, or did they really get who they wanted? Is that really what SEC schools expected? That's funny. Top-notch quote there, Jed. That's a good point too, Jerome. Randy wants to know how Brownell keeps his job at Clemson. Yeah. If you listen back to the show earlier, Randy, Terrence Oglesby joined us and said they don't have energy on the ball. What? I mean, that's an implication they're not playing hard, in my opinion. I don't know.
Play Fox Sports Radio 1400 on iHeartRadio. That sounds like a pretty good choice to me.
Welcome back to the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Some of the comments, Jed says, why do Auburn and Tennessee have to get head coaches from Boise State and UCF, or did they really get who they wanted? Is that really what SEC schools expect? I'm not buying what Danny White said about Heupel was his first choice. I think there were other guys that were out there that were offered that job and turned it down. A couple other notes. Jerome says these players are transferring out of there, but will it follow them? No, the NCAA is doing their full investigation, and Tennessee is not North Carolina. Tennessee will get hammered. I mean, North Carolina basketball cannot touch it. I mean, remember, and we always bring this up on the show, North Carolina basketball had an entire, the School for African American Studies at North Carolina. It was basically giving them degrees like they were going through a drive-through. So that's not going to be that way at Tennessee, though. They gave them some money in McDonald's bag. They'll probably get hammered. So there's that. Let's see here. Alan says maybe Danny White can bring in the UCF cheerleaders in the band. Maybe so. Kale, a buddy from the upstate, my good friend here. So it comes out, Josh Heupel didn't even tell his players goodbye. What a jerk. You know what? That's I have issues with that, meaning that, they recruited the kids that were at UCF or whatever. These coaches can leave, but a lot of times these kids can't. So there's that. Brandon says Heupel got a 6-year, $24 million contract. Wow. We'll have to see how that works. One other note before I get into the South Carolina schedule, which is Brock's question. Randy says, how does Brad Brownell keep his job at Clemson? Brad Brownell's put together a solid basketball team as far as talent, but Terrence Oglesby, who is a guy who knows a heck of a lot more about basketball than I ever will, said point blank, they lacked energy closing out on the three-point shot. That, in my opinion, comes down to the coaches. If you can't motivate them enough to go out and cover the three, maybe they're not listening to you anymore. I don't know. Now, 12 of those guys stepped into this room and told me, yeah, we're right behind Coach Brownell. You'd be inclined to believe that. But in my opinion, I'll believe it a lot more if they come out tonight and they actually close out on the ball and they don't let Louisville jack up threes like pretty much everybody else did. As far as the South Carolina schedule, for those who have not heard it, let's get this out of the way quickly here before we head to our next break. September 4th is the opener for the season. They are at home against Eastern Illinois. They then go on the road for 2 straight weeks. They go to East Carolina on September the 11th, and then they play at Georgia on September the 18th, followed up by a home game versus Kentucky, then a home game on October the 2nd against Troy. They go on the road to play Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers on October the 9th. October the 16th, they're at home against Vanderbilt. October the 23rd, they go to Texas A&M. They are off for Halloween weekend. That's kind of different. Or maybe I just lose I won't have to work with the best Gamecock coverage on Halloween and take my kids out to trick or treat. Pretty happy about that. But we're going to be rid of the coronavirus by then. Just saying. I don't want to talk politics on the show, but I just like to think that our medical folks are getting behind that. November 6th, the home game with Florida. November 13th, they go on the road to Mizzou. November 20th, home game with Auburn. And then the 27th, they wrap up the home season with Clemson coming to town. So there's your matchups for South Carolina. As it looks from here one more time, Eastern Illinois at East Carolina, at Georgia, home game with Kentucky, home with Troy, at Tennessee, home with Vandy, at Texas A&M, home with Florida, at Mizzou, home with Auburn, home with Clemson. There you go. South Carolina's upcoming football schedule. There's a couple of, I think, trouble spots there. I mean, we don't know what kind of team South Carolina is going to have, but two opening road games in September, kind of tough in my opinion. October is interesting with, if you look at October, that could define their season. Kentucky, Troy, at Tennessee, and home with Vanderbilt, and then they go to Texas A&M. If they can throw up let's say a 2 or a 3 spot in those 4 games, South Carolina is going to be pretty decent as far as the rest of the way goes. At Texas A&M, until they can beat them, I don't know how that's going to work out for them. But the home game with Florida, going to Mizzou, and then 2 home games with Auburn and Clemson. October, after Halloween on, is tough, in my opinion. It's going to be tough. But they can make their way in September. If they can win those 2 opener games against the non-conference teams, that 4-game stretch, Kentucky, Troy, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, they do well there. South Carolina could be looking at a bowl season if they can get stuff together. And I don't know who all is going to be there. I'm just saying the one sure thing that I know about South Carolina is I think Kevin Harris is a great running back, and they can ride the running game, which is what I would do if I were the offensive coordinator. That's the route that I would go. And see if Coach White can get that defense on track. We shall see. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Someone mentioned this earlier. We'll talk about it when we come back. There's no loyalty in the coaching world, man. They'll leave these guys in a second. We'll talk about that and a lot more in just a moment on the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yes, Vol, Allen V. Troll Vol. We're going to look at the whole schedule tomorrow there, Brock. So looking forward to that for everybody. We'll roll up and down those. But yes, bowl season. I think that they are a better team than Eastern Illinois and East Carolina. That's 2 wins. Tennessee's the worst program in the SEC by far. I don't count Vanderbilt. They're there to keep the GPA up. Home game with Kentucky. You know, they lost a ton of guys, man. And it's early. I'm not saying they'll be favored, but it is at home. Home game against Vanderbilt, they beat Vanderbilt. Home game against Troy, I think they beat Troy. Just saying. Out of those 4 wins, do you really think that South Carolina is not going to be competitive in all 4 of those games? I don't think that's I don't think that's me being outlandish. I think that that 4-game set there, they can be very competitive. And I think they'll match up and do well Eastern Illinois and East Carolina. I don't think they're going to fall completely off the planet. It's not like they had 24 guys in the transfer portal and, you know, Big Mac boxes with cash in them. Jerome, did you see the stuff on Twitter that I was dealing with today? Did you see the guy on Twitter that was running his mouth at me? It was pretty crazy. I was laughing really hard. You might be right, Brandon. Go and look at my tweets. It will. The guy's hilarious. Hilarious. Final segment of the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Radio 1400. One of the other interesting notes for today, and maybe it's just me, Tennessee's going to have to pay $6 million buyout for Josh Heupel's services to Central Florida. Okay? So there's that. Just the money that's thrown around. That's why when people talk about, oh, well, the money this and the money that, Tennessee probably didn't even bat an eye with the $6 million. Oh, we got to give you $6 million? No big deal. That's the guy we deal with it. When you play at a Power 5 conference, you have the capability, I think, in most places to have the ability to say, hey, we can do that. So there's that. We'll take calls at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If I were Josh Heupel's agent, though, I would have advised him, don't take the Tennessee job. I know that everybody's like, yeah, but we had a caller earlier saying Tennessee was going to be back in 2 years. They haven't been back in 15 years. I mean, what was it? 3 seasons ago, they didn't win a conference game. 24 guys in the transfer portal. Sanctions are coming. Central Florida is a better job than Tennessee is right now. And I stand behind that. I really do. If you want to debate me on that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Couple of other notes here. We were talking about, Kale mentioned earlier, Josh Heupel didn't tell his guys goodbye. Yeah, that happens. That happens. I think a lot of football coaches expect these guys to be in the bucket with them. You know, we're all going to fight together. But when they choose another bucket, they could care less on a lot of them. You can see a lot of it where it's like, all right, I got to go somewhere else. You know, Des Kitching's leaving today. It's just, at this point, it's like, wow, just tough, man. Tough across the board. Tough across the board when it comes to that. Loyalty is just not there when it comes to college football coaches, in my opinion, to an extent. But I also think you can look at it from the other perspective, too. I don't know if he had the opportunity to do it. You know, maybe he's going to go down there and have a meeting. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It just optics of it look bad. But with Tennessee, though, the idea is going to be the sanctions and, you know, can he convince some of these guys to step back out of the transfer portal? It's going to be interesting. 803-978-1832. Tomorrow on the program, we are going to look at the rest of the SEC schedule and getting themselves, checking them out. I can pretty much guarantee you Alabama's schedule will be the easiest of all of them. I'm serious. As far as our non-conference goes, it'll be the easiest. Easiest. Nectarios online says, are these rumors or has his leaving been confirmed? As far as Des Kitchings, yes. Go to the blog page, foxsportsradio1400.com. It's all up there for you. Brock says, I see Clemson falling out in the next couple of years. Once they lose Dabo, the next coach will have to be in his shadow. Then they'll hire another coach. Clemson will be the next Miami, Tennessee. And that's some Randy Savage off the top rope stuff there. By the way, we're going to have on the show on Friday Mike Mooneyham from the Post and Courier. You know, the best wrestling writer in the world, in my opinion. Does a wrestling column for the Post and Courier every week, even though he's retired. And we're going to talk about some professional wrestling on Friday. Give us a little break. Get ready for the Royal Rumble. Talk about that. Also, Mr. Savage College Football is going to join us. He's never watched WrestleMania 3, ladies and gentlemen. He's supposed to watch WrestleMania 3 and tell us his opinion of WrestleMania 3. That's going to be interesting. Now, we'll see how it works out on Friday and whatever else comes our way. So we're going to have that working out for us Friday. Tomorrow, though, is our SEC schedule breakdown day, where we'll laugh at Alabama's non-conference schedule, that Alabama fans will look you directly in the face and say, it's the toughest in the country. It's absolutely tough. And we have to play Ole Miss and Arkansas too. Just remember that. You're not looking at Ole Miss and Arkansas as just these wonderful powers. Arkansas would win the ACC this year. That's what you get from Alabama fans. So Alabama fans will be upset with me tomorrow. I know they will, because we're going to destroy their schedule live here on the radio and around the world on, of course, Facebook, YouTube, and the iHeartRadio app. So we're going to have that. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon, really jacked up about the shows coming up the next couple of days. And we'll have a full recap tomorrow, too, on the basketball games tonight. You know, both pivotal games for Clemson and South Carolina. Clemson, at one point, was ranked 12th in the country. Now, wow, they look like the 12th best team in the conference. It's pretty bad. And South Carolina just seems like they've been fighting the COVID, man. It's like a cloud that's hung over the program. Coach Martin getting it, a pause here, a stop there. They need the Georgia game tonight if they want to have a shot at any chance of a postseason. So, yeah, big games tonight for both of the big in-state programs. As we get set up to check that out tomorrow. 1832 803 978 1832. Jerome says we might drop from 299 to 300 in the polls. Oh, goodness. Crazy day here on the rundown, of course, with the announcement of the South Carolina schedule. In case you missed it, we'll give it to you one more time. Gamecocks open at home with Eastern Illinois, play at East Carolina on the 11th of September. September 18th, they're on the road at Georgia, followed by a home game the following week against Kentucky, home game the week after that against Troy, on the road at Tennessee. Also a home game against Vanderbilt, then a road game at Texas A&M. October the 30th, they're off. November 6th, a tough part of the schedule. Home with Florida, at Mizzou, home with Auburn, home with Clemson. So tough schedule there. Blake says Frank Martin looked really sick. COVID made him lose all his hair. No, he just shaved his head. I think that's just the way he wanted to go. Brandon says Alabama plays Miami neutral site in Atlanta this year. Yes, neutral site games don't count. Not within the realms of this show. Unless it's a bowl game, neutral site games at the beginning of the season are just, whatever. Play home and homes, man. It just makes sense. Alan says 5 wins max for South Carolina. Congratulations. Alan is really trying to troll people here on the rundown. We can kind of break that down a little bit tomorrow and see, what your is 5 wins a reach. And a lot of it comes down to you don't really know what you got. So we'll see what happens. Tomorrow, as I said, SEC schedule breakdown. Some folks are saying Mizzou's schedule looks really easy. We got to check that out. And how will Josh Heupel's first year at Tennessee look? We'll look at that tomorrow, as we've already looked at the Gamecocks for today. So it should be interesting. I'll go home tonight and dive into those numbers. That's going to be some fun stuff there. I'm such a nerd when it comes to that kind of thing. I love looking at, they go here as a home game, go there as an away game. Is that going to affect them? I don't know. Strange stuff. All right, my name is Rob Sanders. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Please go over there and look at all the Tennessee fans that were upset with me because I said that it was a step-down job for Josh Heupel. Go and check that out at Rob Sounds Good. Also, Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk is next from the vast Clemson Sports Talk Radio Network. Be sure to check him out from 4 to 6. My name is Rob Sanders. We'll see you tomorrow on The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, guys. New Rob and Kale show tonight. Looking forward to it, man. We'll see you guys later on.